Imagine a world where a single drop of blood could unlock the secrets of your health. A revolutionary device, miniaturized, democratizing medicine, making advanced diagnostics accessible to everyone. This was the audacious promise of Theranos and its enigmatic founder, Elizabeth Holmes. She built an empire, valued at an astonishing $9 billion, on this very vision. But beneath the veneer of innovation and the carefully curated image of a visionary lay a monumental deception. A house of cards constructed on a foundation of pure fabrication, destined to crumble, exposing the darkest side of Silicon Valley's ambition. From the hallowed halls of Stanford University, a young Elizabeth Holmes emerged, charismatic and driven, with an idea that promised to disrupt an entire industry. She envisioned a future where cumbersome, painful venipuncture would be obsolete, replaced by a simple finger-prick blood test. This wasn't just about convenience, it was about empowering individuals, giving them control over their own health data, detecting diseases earlier, and saving lives. Her passion was infectious, her conviction absolute. She became the poster child for innovation, hailed as the next Steve Jobs, a disruptor poised to change the world. The narrative was irresistible. Holmes quickly captivated Silicon Valley's most influential figures. With her intense gaze and distinctive low voice, she commanded attention, drawing in a constellation of powerful investors and board members. Luminaries like Rupert Murdoch, Betsy DeVos, and former Secretaries of State Henry Kissinger and George Shultz lent their names, and their considerable capital, to her burgeoning enterprise. Their faith, their substantial investments, fueled Theranos' meteoric ascent, inflating its valuation to billions. It seemed nothing could stop the momentum of this groundbreaking company, poised to redefine healthcare forever. The hype was deafening. At the core of Theranos' extraordinary claim was a proprietary device, the Edison. This sleek, compact machine, no bigger than a desktop computer, was touted as a miracle of modern engineering. It promised to perform hundreds of complex blood tests, from cholesterol levels to cancer markers, all from a minuscule sample, just a few drops of blood collected from a fingertip. It was a vision of medical efficiency and accessibility previously unimaginable. The Edison was not merely a product, it was the embodiment of Holmes's revolutionary promise, the physical proof of her audacious claims, the very heart of the illusion she was weaving. Behind the gleaming facade, Theranos operated under a shroud of extreme secrecy, justified by the protection of trade secrets. This culture, however, extended beyond competitive caution. It became a mechanism for control and concealment. Dissent was stifled, questions were unwelcome. Employees were often siloed, unable to see the full picture, prevented from discussing their work even with colleagues. Overseeing this suffocating environment was Ramesh Sunny Balwani, Holmes's romantic partner and the company's COO. Together, they cultivated an atmosphere of paranoia, where loyalty was paramount, and critical inquiry was met with intimidation, ensuring the truth remained buried. The reality within Theranos' labs was a devastating betrayal of its public image. The Edison devices, the very cornerstone of the company's innovation, were deeply flawed, failing to produce reliable results. Many of the vaunted tests were, in fact, being conducted on standard commercial analyzers, machines available to any lab, not Theranos' proprietary tech. Worse still, patient blood samples were often diluted to create enough volume for these conventional machines, rendering the results clinically meaningless, wildly inaccurate. The revolutionary promise was a lie, the technology, a mirage. It was a dangerous charade, played with human lives. The implications of this deception were profound, and terrifyingly real. Patients were receiving vital diagnostic results that were utterly unreliable. A false positive could lead to unnecessary, invasive medical procedures, causing immense anxiety and physical harm. A false negative could delay critical treatment for serious conditions like cancer or diabetes, with potentially fatal consequences. This wasn't merely a financial fraud, it was a profound breach of medical ethics, gambling with the health and lives of thousands. The very people Theranos claimed to serve were the primary victims of its calculated deceit. The stakes couldn't be higher. Despite the internal failures, Elizabeth Holmes relentlessly pursued expansion. In 2013, Theranos announced a landmark partnership with Walgreens, one of America's largest pharmacy chains. This collaboration was meant to bring Theranos' wellness centers to neighborhoods nationwide, integrating the fraudulent technology directly into the public healthcare infrastructure. Walgreens, eager to lead innovation in retail health, poured significant investment into the venture. For the public, these brightly lit centers represented the tangible arrival of Holmes's promise, a sign of legitimate progress. For Theranos, it was a grand-scale public validation of a technology that simply did not exist as advertised. But even within the highly controlled environment, the truth began to fester. A few brave employees, witnessing the alarming inaccuracies and the ethical compromises, found their consciences piqued. Tyler Schultz, the grandson of board member George Schultz, and Erica Chung were among those who refused to remain silent. They observed tests being manipulated, quality control failures being ignored, and patient results being knowingly compromised. Their attempts to raise concerns internally were met with hostility, dismissal, and legal threats. They faced immense pressure, but their conviction to expose the fraud only grew stronger. The whispers were turning into shouts. The critical turning point arrived when investigative reporter John Carreras of the Wall Street Journal began to hear the whispers. Initially, the story seemed almost too fantastic to be true, a $9 billion startup, backed by titans, built on a lie. His skepticism was quickly replaced by a determined pursuit of the facts. Holmes and Theranos, fiercely protective of their image, employed aggressive tactics to deter him, sending threatening legal letters and attempts to discredit his sources. But Carreras was undeterred. The more resistance he met, the more convinced he became that there was something deeply wrong beneath the polished surface. The hunt was on. Carreras' investigation became a relentless odyssey into the heart of corporate deception. He worked tirelessly, often in secret, interviewing dozens of former Theranos employees, meticulously cross-referencing their accounts with leaked internal documents and emails. Each new piece of information corroborated the terrifying narrative: Theranos was deliberately misleading investors and endangering patients. The legal threats from Theranos, spearheaded by high-powered attorney David Boies, intensified, aimed at intimidating sources and stifling the free press. Yet, Carreras pressed on, driven by a profound sense of journalistic duty and the undeniable weight of the evidence he was uncovering. The truth was about to break. On October 15, 2015, the Wall Street Journal published John Carreras' bombshell exposé, A Prized Startup Struggles. The article laid bare the core deception, revealing that Theranos' Edison machines were inaccurate and that most tests were run on modified commercial devices. The reverberations were immediate and cataclysmic. Elizabeth Holmes appeared on CNBC, defiantly dismissing the report as false and misleading, a desperate attempt to control the narrative. But the damage was done. The meticulously crafted illusion had shattered, sending shockwaves through Silicon Valley and the medical community. The fall had begun, swiftly and publicly. The Wall Street Journal's exposé acted as a catalyst, triggering a cascade of regulatory scrutiny. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, swiftly launched an investigation into Theranos' lab operations. Their findings were damning, severe deficiencies that posed immediate jeopardy to patient health and safety. The FDA also stepped in, demanding Theranos cease using its Edison system for all but one test, citing a lack of regulatory clearance. The company, once untouchable, now found itself besieged on all sides by federal agencies, each revelation peeling back another layer of its profound operational failures and dangerous non-compliance. There was no escape. With regulators closing in and the public trust evaporated, investors began a rapid, irreversible retreat. Walgreens, facing immense pressure and public backlash, terminated its partnership with Theranos in 2016, closing all wellness centers and demanding a refund. The company's once stratospheric valuation plummeted from $9 billion to virtually nothing. Major venture capital firms and high-profile individual investors, who had once lauded Holmes, now faced monumental losses. The myth of Theranos had dissolved, leaving behind a trail of devastated reputations and billions of dollars in vanished wealth. The empire had crumbled into dust. The civil repercussions were swiftly followed by criminal charges. In June 2018, Elizabeth Holmes and Sunny Balwani were indicted by a federal grand jury on charges of wire fraud and conspiracy to commit wire fraud. The Department of Justice alleged that they engaged in a multi-million-dollar scheme to defraud investors and a separate scheme to defraud patients. The former visionary and her enforcer were now facing the full weight of federal prosecution. The transition was stark, from celebrated tech titans to defendants in a criminal courtroom, their once unassailable public image replaced by the grim reality of legal accountability. Justice was closing in. The trial of Elizabeth Holmes captivated the world, becoming a stark emblem of Silicon Valley's unchecked ambition. For months, a stream of witnesses took the stand. Former Theranos employees detailed the systematic deception, whistleblowers recounted intimidation, and patients described the terrifying impact of inaccurate test results. Prosecutors meticulously presented evidence of manipulated data, falsified reports, and the deliberate concealment of the Edison's failures. Holmes, attempting to deflect blame, testified for days, painting herself as a victim. Yet, the mountain of evidence, painstakingly compiled, stood firm against her narratives. The truth was inescapable. On January 3, 2022, after a lengthy deliberation, the jury delivered its verdict. Elizabeth Holmes was found guilty on 4 counts of defrauding investors. While acquitted on charges related to defrauding patients, the conviction sent an unequivocal message. She was sentenced to 11 years and 3 months in federal prison, her freedom stripped away, her future irrevocably altered. Sunny Balwani also faced conviction and a similar sentence. The architect of the $9 billion fraud, once lauded as a groundbreaking entrepreneur, was now a convicted felon, her story a potent symbol of corporate hubris and criminal deceit. The spectacular fall was complete. The Theranos saga leaves behind a profound and sobering legacy. It serves as a stark cautionary tale for Silicon Valley, forcing a critical re-evaluation of the fake-it-till-you-make-it ethos and the dangers of uncritical reverence for charismatic founders. The fraud eroded trust in nascent health technologies and reminded the public that innovation, when untethered from ethics and accountability, can cause immense harm. Elizabeth Holmes's dramatic rise and even more dramatic fall stands as a chilling reminder that while ambition can build empires, lies will always, eventually, bring them crashing down. The truth, in the end, always prevails.